Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman, and today we're going to talk about making incremental change visible. My main value add that I do, or the main thing I do when I program, is I'm doing scaling and performance. And most of the time, it's a game of inches. You don't, like sometimes you'll come in and you'll find, oh my God, look at this terrible thing. I'm going to fix this, and suddenly the system's going to be 3 times faster, or this page is going to
Right.
go from 30-second load to 1 second load, and everyone's going to be like, "Wow, you're amazing!" And you are. You're awesome if you do that. Don't don't sell yourself short.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, it's this page takes 30 seconds to load, and your customers are unhappy and they're threatening to leave. And you optimize something, and now it takes 28 seconds to load, and there's still customers are still really mad. And then you optimize it again, and now it's like 24 seconds. And you do another pass, and it's 20 seconds. And this goes along with a lot of what we talk about with the rewrites and the traps of the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how to make those changes visible, you might want to hold them back. Like, well, it's just 2 seconds. I want to hold back until I have 10 seconds of change, right? If I want to go from 30 seconds to 20 seconds, that's noticeable. People will see it and understand, and I'll get a lot of kudos. But if I go 28, 28, 26, 24, 22, 20, they're not going to see it. There's going to be questions. People are going to be bugging me. You'll get micromanaged. So today, let's talk about how you beat that and how you make it visible.
Okay.
And the answer is metrics. You need to be able to have metrics, some kind of metrics, saying, hey, it takes 30 seconds. So if you're talking about a website, a web page, even if you can use like Google Chrome has this thing called Lighthouse, or other things. If it's an endpoint, you can just time the endpoint, and hopefully you can get logs from your load balancers. Something you need something that says this is this is what the average is, and ideally you'd want to have like your P50, that's your median, and the P75, which means 75% of the instances are this or less. Then if you're going to be really happy, really good, and you can get it, do P90, P95, and P99. Because those will tell you your P50 is your median, P75 is sort of the normal range. So you take the P50 and the P75, and that kind of gives you an idea of how much the normal range is. And your P99 is kind of your worst case. This is the worst 1% of your performance is whatever this is. And it's going to be way off the scale.
Gotcha.
And so, okay, so you get those. And let's do that before you start optimizing anything.
Yeah.
And then now you actually have, once you have it, you have some kind of metric, some kind of table, and you say, okay, this is what it was on this date. And you do a release. And you run your tests, and you say, okay, yes, it's the P50 is now 2 seconds lower, and importantly, the P99 is probably going to be like 10 seconds slower, just because when things go wrong, they go really wrong. And if you reduce the amount of things that can go wrong, it's going to have a huge impact.
All right.
And then after the release, measure and let everyone know. Let everyone know the change. Hey, we did this change, which we thought was going to do this. Here's the impact. And having the median and the worst case, being able to show those two things, that is more than doubly valuable, because you're not only showing that, hey, you've made things better, but you're also able to say, look, for when things go bad, we've made it a whole lot less bad.
Right.
And
I was going to say, I think I fell into this mistake a little while back where we were trying to measure like how reliable our system was over time, which is kind of a bigger one. Instead of a feature, it's like how reliable have we been? And I realized that until we used this particular service to flag an incident, we kind of lost track in Slack when things went wrong. People would just go, oh, things are broken, and then you'd fix it. But you didn't really log that, oh yeah, things were broken, or we had 20 incidents this month, blah, blah, blah. Then we started using that, and then after we used the tool to just anything to have a metric, something bad happened today, then you can look back after 8 months and go, oh, our efforts of improving reliability have been better or worse because our incidents were 20 a month and now it's one a month or less than one a month.
Mm-hmm.
Having something to measure on. And I like that you called out, do it before you start.
Yes.
Because if that's the main goal of your project, ours was just like, oh, things are getting broken, we should stabilize it. And we were just
Mm-hmm.
trying to just, what's the word for it? Triage. We're just trying to
Right.
triage it. So we weren't even thinking about, we should measure it before we begin because we wanted to see how good we did later. It was just like, no, stabilize it, where there's a panic there.
Yes.
But if it had we would have better metrics and we would have better things to kind of share with the team had we done that. And so that's kind of like a definitely something I do now before. You can't prove that the page is faster or no one feels it or something else changes underneath it. Then how do you know
Right.
your thing worked? What are you doing all day? Says the product team.
Well, and yeah, and a lot of times you can do it after you start, but it's better to do it before.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can't do it before, then do it as soon as you can. And if you can't look at, humans are really bad at statistics over time. Like if you had to ask people like, "Oh, what is your sense of how many incidents we have per month going back in time?" People are going to give you really wrong answers relative to actually having numbers. And that's just humans. We, as a species, we're bad at this. So don't not knock it anyone. And so having those numbers and being able to, because people won't believe, they're like, "Oh, well, this thing is terribly slow." But if you don't measure it and say it's 30 seconds, then later when you're like, okay, it's at 20 seconds. If you start when it's at 20 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
and then you make it 18, in their heads, it's like, oh, well, I know you've been doing work, but it couldn't possibly have been 30 seconds before.
Yeah. Yeah.
They won't believe. But having the metrics, it lets you be more scientific about these things. Like you can start talking in a more scientific manner of, I made this change, which I believe is going to do this.
Right.
And then I measured, and here's the outcome. And a lot of times, like I made a change that I thought was going to improve the time. And like my P50 didn't change at all.
Right.
My P99 got better. And so it's like, oh, well, I made this change. Clearly it wasn't part of the, what is the normal amount. Like it didn't impact the happy path flow in any meaningful way. It's just too much noise. It's too small. You can see it had a bit of impact on the P99. And now you've built up a better model of, oh, well, this thing isn't part of the problem, my general problem.
Right.
And again, this is something that you wouldn't have if you weren't checking and measuring. And so going back to where I was starting with, it lets you talk about small incremental changes and celebrate the wins. Like if you've got a 30-second page load and you knock a second off, you can say, oh, well, this is now 1 second faster, but it's still 29 pages. But you could also say, oh, well, this is now 3% faster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the exact same thing, but it's easier to talk about. And it's people are like, oh, well, 3% faster, no one's really going to notice. But it's there. You can talk about it and you can keep talking about it. Because if you don't talk about it, it's hard for people to remember that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so if you say, oh, well, I'm working on this page, it's slow, and I'm working on it, and you go radio silent, and you do 10 releases, each of which knock off 1 second. And then you come back and say, okay, well, now I've been working on it a month, and it's now a third faster. It's gone from 30 seconds to 20 seconds. That'd be great. But if you had, every 3 days, you're saying, I just knocked a second off, I just knocked a second off, I just knocked a second off. And people are seeing that like it's twice a week, that you were knocking a second off, in their head, they're like, oh, well, this is getting better.
Yeah.
And their feeling about it is going to improve. And when an angry customer says, oh, this is terrible, they would be able to go back up, oh, well, we know it's terrible. We're working on it. You might not have noticed, but it's gone from 30 seconds to 25 seconds. Right. And we're working, and we're having small improvements every day if you watch for it. And you can tell, it's a story that you can tell.
Yeah.
It's not a story of, oh, well, just wait, we're coming, we're working on it really hard, it's coming soon. No, it's coming now.
Right.
It might be so small that you don't notice it, but we can tell you about it.
This kind of reminds me too of another story about A/B testing and the value of measuring and metrics and A/B tests. And I had a very naive understanding of A/B tests. I just, at first I remember at one company we were adding steps to a quiz.
Mm-hmm.
And the more steps you have, the more information we can collect. But you get quiz fatigue because people like might abandon the quiz. Like it was about like trying to sell your home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how much is your home going to be worth? And then we want you to complete the quiz, right? Because we want to know more details about it. But what they would do is A/B tests, adding different steps, and if they saw a drop off, they went, "Oh, okay, maybe adding that they didn't like that question or made them abandon the quiz or whatever." So you've got those
Mm-hmm.
metrics to help you understand how your changes go in, and that kind of makes sense from that. That was my basic understanding is either that kind of flow or the flow of like changing language, like subtle language swaps to see
Mm-hmm.
which performed better or which was more clickable, you know. But an interesting and another callback to why you should do this before you begin. Probably a lot of different features, not even just things that might be obvious to A/B test. There was one other interesting case where we were going to add a magic link sign in to a page. So instead of just having to remember your password and type it in, we're also going to add a magic link, and you could just have a magic link emailed to you for a fast login.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the requirements was to make this an A/B test, and I was like, why would you even care to A/B test this? It's a net good. you know, either you don't have an ability to log in really fast and you just have to remember your password, or you've got extra good functionality. Who would care to A/B test this? And I was very confused.
What
Um,
was the answer?
the answer was, well, if they log in faster, then what if they cancel faster? What if they cancel their subscription faster? And we want to know if we've made it
Hmm.
very easy for them to get back in their account to cancel. And so I was like, okay, well, that's a morality question for me.
Right.
Like,
That wasn't where I thought you
why
were going
would
to go. I was
what,
like it wasn't
wait for it,
obvious.
wait for it, wait for
Yeah.
it. Why would you want to go that route? And I thought that seems kind of like lame because you're making it harder for someone to cancel
Right.
because you want to take their money, right? But that wasn't the full answer. The full answer is, well, first we just want to know if there's a change. Second, can we encourage them not to cancel in a non-dickish way? Like we don't want to make it like there's some products out there that are super hard to cancel, but we can also add a step right when you try to cancel. Hey, why did you cancel? And give them options. And if there's an option we can help them in, like a fast customer support or some other kind of thing, we can retain that customer
Mm-hmm.
rather than having them just quit. So there's a lot to that, and I obviously went to this is immoral, this is stupid route, but having that data is really important. If you make it faster for someone to cancel because you don't have an intermediary step that asks them why they're going to cancel and they start canceling in mass and you have no data, that's not good. Maybe you should build that first and
Mm.
have that quiz step and collect it. But all that to say, like, those metrics are super important. Whether, like, for me, it might seem silly to add a new feature and be like, no, let's take it away. Like, why would we not, want to release that? But there's so much value in just having data behind decisions, even ones you don't think are important. Having some kind of way of showing the thing that I did caused a net good or net bad in this case is not just I have improved 30 seconds, 20 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
historically, but that I didn't release something that inadvertently caused churn, even though it seemed like a good thing, is also very important.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting because it's I guess if, putting aside the stuff you said later, but if you take it from the morality standpoint, if making a magic link means that people were coming back for the intention of canceling, and then if they couldn't remember their username and password because they weren't using the service,
Mm-hmm.
and giving them the magic link made it less friction, so it made it easier for them to get back in, so that they could then cancel. That's an interesting thing as well because that tells you it tells you something interesting that people who aren't logging in aren't getting any value out of your service. And depending upon the service, that might be obvious or it might not be. Like if it's
Mm-hmm.
if it's a service where you have to log in to use it to get any value out of it, then of course people who aren't logging in aren't getting value. But not all services are like that. Like I don't
Right.
log into my bank very often.
Yeah. So it might just be one of those services where, like, you thought you got some value out of it. Then, as you logged in, you didn't see any new updates or anything. And you're like, well, while I'm here, I may as well cancel. And you wouldn't have done that day if you forgot your password. And you're like, I can't remember what my password is. Then you get billed an extra month. Which, again, to me, that's That's lame. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of companies do work. They hope that you forget, or they encourage you to pause your subscription instead of canceling. You know, right? But
Mm-hmm.
regardless, having that data, the team can go, okay, how about we disable the magic link? It's making it too easy for people to cancel, and then we go ahead and quickly add a survey because we want to start understanding why they're canceling. You know, um, the morality is still questionable to me. There, I still think you should just let them cancel. But
Yeah, the morality is
um,
questionable on that one. But as a
the
general plan,
as a general plan, collect data about everything. Who knows if there isn't a thing that you actually added that you intended to do good with,
mm-hmm.
like you know created some new feature, and it still resulted in churn. Like again, the quiz step. Maybe you changed the quiz step and you're trying to collect more data because you want to serve the customer better and have a better experience with a follow up email or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up being the one extra step in a quiz. Is like, oh, this quiz is taking too long. I'm going to abandon it. So your intent was to do good, and now you've actually got less leads because of that. If you didn't measure that at all, then suddenly it's just a mystery. Wow, we've got 0 leads compared to last month. I wonder what happened. And that's a pretty terrible place to be in too.
When I was at Guaranteed Rate, I wasn't on the team, but I know there were teams that were doing the get a mortgage for your house or get a mortgage because you're going to buy a house, and they definitely did a lot of A/B testing around which questions cause people to bounce
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and how could they spread those questions out so that they're more likely to fill in the whole thing. And so it's like, well, if you start by asking people for like their social security number in the first page, they're going to bounce.
Right.
That's like the last thing.
You
It's
got
like,
to ease
okay,
them into giving up the information.
right. You've already
Sunk cost
done
fallacy.
15 minutes here. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
now we need your actual things like your social so that we can pull your credit so that we can tell you the answers because we don't know, right?
Right.
Like we need it was a case where we needed this information. We weren't just being
Invasive. Yeah.
invasive, but it's an invasive question.
Yes. Yeah.
And so they did a lot of A/B testing along that way to find out which paths made it less likely to go with. But we're off topic, I think, because
It's still metric related.
it's still metric related. But I'm going with having metrics lets you release extremely small increments that are not the increments that are not going to have any human notice the improvement,
Mm-hmm.
and still give you the ability to talk about them, which is what you want. You want it to be so
Right.
small that no one's going to notice, and you because that makes it easier to release them. Oh, this thing is so small no one's going to notice. Good. You don't
Right.
want people to notice, and but you need to be able to talk about it, and you need to talk about it. That's the other half of the equation. Is when you're doing incremental anything, you need to talk about about the increments. You need to be able to say, we
Yeah.
did this, we did this, we did this, and this is the impact. Or it's like, hey, this week we released 3 times and we had this impact, and next week we're going to release 3 more times. We hope to have the same impact, and you're going to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to keep it fresh in people's minds and remind them, hey, I'm doing this thing. You're not going
Right.
to see every individual thing. It's like film, right? It's 30 frames a second. You don't see any individual frame,
Mm-hmm.
and you just need to work in that way.
There's a project you and I worked on recently where we did something similar, and essentially we were swapping over queues from a database queue to SQS, and we had
Mm-hmm.
a series of them to do this with, and we did take a snapshot of like our expectation was the database load would go down since we're using a proper queue instead of using the database as a queue.
Mm-hmm.
And each week we swapped them over, took a screenshot of or took a screenshot, but also just collected just CloudWatch metrics anyway around it, and you can show that story. Like the fact that you can. It felt faster after the 6 weeks, but you could also see which queues were doing the most damage as far
Mm-hmm.
as like the heaviest queues. That was great. They could give an update every week, so people are happy with us. We can see the line going down, product's happy, and
Mm-hmm.
at the end, you've got a great story to tell for your career. Like this is how I did this 2 month, 3 month project that helped alleviate database issues, and we measured it at every step of the way and kept it fresh in people's minds. Because
Right.
before it was just a nebulous, we should optimize the database.
It'll be
And you do like
good.
little optimizations here, optimizations there. If no one's tracking it, who can tell what went in or What was some other refactoring that fixed some other database load? You can't
Right.
prove that your thing was the thing that fixed it. All
Awesome.
right. Anything else?
I think that's it. Thank you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
I'm Isaac Askew. Always use metrics, and this is Never Rewrite.